So, did you like the episode? If you do or not do, I not really care anymore, okay? So why? Because I sell show.
But Kitty, didn't you already talk about this? Catherine, you liar. No, I didn't. I'm pretty sure it was one of your first videos, like before you got big and you got your niche out of the way. No, I didn't, and it's January, so we don't talk about that. Hi, I'm Kitty Monk, and I'm here to talk to you about American Dad, or more specifically, their worst episode, which is kind of a base breaker in the fan base, American Fung. I prefer American Stepdad. Wait, what was that movie? That dude who, like, murders? American Psycho, yeah, that's it. It was a Broadway musical. I gotta finish reading that book. I only got up to the part with the bus with Eponine. Granted, my least favorite episode is Less Money, Mo Problems, but American Fung is very high up on people's lists. Now, American Dad is a show that often succeeds by being experimental, like challenging tropes in ways beyond just deconstructing them. Or, hey, by having a gender-fluid alien. Hey, they have a step up over Family Guy, all they have is a dog.
Brian Griffin. Do I know you? Stop pretending I don't exist!
Oh, of course you would think that. He would be too good for this show. Or he'd think he'd be too good for this show. He is too bad for this show. Or there was that one episode with the horse that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. But American Dad being experimental can sometimes backfire on them. I mean, No Weddings and a Funeral was meant to do what Seahorse Seashell Party did, and it actually kind of succeeded, to me at least. But for many people, it just felt unnecessarily cruel. And honestly, while I can understand Klaus being the Meg, since he tends to bring the misfortunes onto himself, the episode ignores that just to make him the glue. So this is where American Fung comes in. It's an episode with an out-there premise that doesn't quite deliver. If anything, Family Guy did something better with Disney's The Reboot and 3 directors, where they just played around with the concept without really saying anything. And they made fun of everybody, so okay. So let's discuss and see if American Fung could have worked.
Hello. This is American Dad you are watching. So who am I? Fung Wah.
I have the urge to change the channel whenever I see this man just because he told me I couldn't. The premise for this episode is that Seth MacFarlane sold the rights to American Dad to a Chinese billionaire, and he promises American Dad will be the same, which we all know is a big fat lie.
But don't worry. It will be same show you always love. Look at my money. So, here is your American Dad. Please, enjoy.
Now, on paper, I think this is an okay idea for an episode, since imagine all the possibilities. Maybe he uses it to churn out a terrible product, since he doesn't know what goes into actually making and producing a cartoon. Maybe it makes fun of people who stereotype it as a Family Guy clone, so American Dad basically turns into Family Guy 2.0. Maybe he could be like Walt Disney, where he actually has good ideas, but relies on other people to make his ideas happen, because he has no clue how to implement them. Unless Oob Iwerks is involved, since Oob Iwerks is the GOAT. Or it could be a predecessor to Elon Musk and Twitter, but I don't really want to get political here. Heck, I feel like they could do an episode where a fan gets to take over and write American Dad their own way, since a lot of these, I guess, plot holes or how they presented could make sense in that kind of way. Instead, well, I hate to say it, it just feels like an inside joke we aren't in on, kind of. Like they'll just show Fung, or they'll show something related to Fung, and they'll make some kind of joke like, look at how funny he is. I'm like, no, like I don't get the joke here.
Whoa, my God! Billionaire Fung Wah has increased his already vast fortune.
Like, I'll be honest, I thought for the longest time that Fung Wah was one of the crew members or a friend of the crew, but it turns out he actually isn't. He's really played by David S. Jung, a character actor who also portrayed the head of the Noah Experience in Daesung Heavy Industries. Another reminder I need to get to that next. At first, the episode starts off as normal, just as Fung Wah promises, albeit he is listed as a producer, but, I mean, he does, like, own American Dad at this point, so hey.
Sup, bud? Super soft over here. Hello?
Smith, happy anniversary.
Huh? Sir?
However, I don't think it should be doing that. It should be as wild and as crazy as possible. Like, it should be like, okay, it starts off typical, and then one scene later, he does something, like, totally crazy.
Well, that just proves it is your anniversary, since you always forget your anniversary precisely on the day of your anniversary.
God, it's my anniversary! Francine's gonna kill me.
And I kind of hate to say it, I feel like this episode really did not need Fung, because it feels like a standard episode that Fung just wandered into. Stan discovers he forgot his anniversary with Francine. Wow, he really learned his lesson from Francine's flashback. I am shocked. I mean, it only took his wife forgetting the last 24 years, him almost losing her, and having to go to Burning Man for him to get the message, but I am shooketh to my core.
You have a time machine?
Not after you used it for your anniversary last year and altered the timeline. Now we have a margarita machine and something called Israel.
I have questions. Stan decides to Baker Act Francine, that way he'll have time to prepare an Awesome Sauce anniversary surprise, which again I think is a good idea for an episode. Francine being in a mental hospital, and it turns out she's really in there as part of an anniversary surprise, or say a birthday surprise, and that's the big twist. That's something American Dad would totally do. And Francine could be like, you did all of this for my birthday? Oh, Stan! Or what would Francine's life be like in the mental hospital, since we don't really see it? Maybe she enjoys it because she doesn't have to do any work, or she's bored out of her mind because she can't do any work. I mean, the Looney Tunes show had an episode just like that, where Bugs actually enjoyed being in prison for a change because everything was handled for him.
A little salty, but I gotta say, it's a pleasure having somebody cook for me.
Wow, this episode is a blender of good ideas with horrible executions that would be fine episodes on their own. Stan goes to the mall to buy something for Francine, but he squanders his time, and Francine is of course sane somehow, so she's going home.
She's ready to be picked up.
Why are you telling me? I'm not her dad. I'm her kid's dad. Because we're married for 19 years and 72 hours. Ooh, our anniversary!
Which, honestly, why? No offense, Francine is kinda crazy. Even before the TBS era turned her into a psycho. Like when she found out Steve was too embarrassed to bring his girlfriend over, her response was to say she should have aborted him.
That four-eyed bastard! That malnourished pasty geek! I knew I should have aborted him!
Goodness.
Also, this is the same woman who basically split her house in two and celebrated a bunch of holidays over the course of 2 weeks to make her husband jealous. I really should review that episode, shouldn't I? Maybe Stan thinks it'll only be 72 hours and it turns out to be 72 days, either because Francine likes being in a mental hospital, she thinks it's fun or something, she lies because she wants to stay longer, or because maybe she says the wrong thing and they think she's insane, when it could just be something that's totally normal for Francine, albeit to somebody who doesn't know her, or out of context, it sounds crazy. Whatever the reason, we need to focus on the subplot for this episode, because yes, there is a subplot. The whole plot with Stan and Francine obviously can't take up the whole episode. Roger's persona closet overfills because he went to Lululemon. Did he murder somebody there? And wait, Roger can afford to shop at Lululemon? That and Whole Foods are a sign that a town is gentrified and the gentrification will never go away.
I got some new pants from Lululemon and tried to add them to the closet and it just burst. Like I did through my Lululemon pants. They make them too tight.
Roger, speaking as a funderfies myself, you need to go to Torrid. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I'm both a Big Mac and a legit snack. Hey, that rhymes. But anyways, Roger, much like me, is a hoarder when it comes to his clothes, because you don't know when you'll get to wear them next. So he can't part with them, and Haley and Steve need to help him.
What about this huge pile of No Fear t-shirts? You could get rid of this one.
No! People need to know that second place is first loser.
What about this one?
No!
Oh no! What are they to do? Well, we'll get there when we get there, okay? Let's just say it involves Fung Wah. Which again, that's kind of why I feel like it shouldn't be that a Chinese billionaire takes over American Dad. It should be like this episode was a self-insert American Dad fanfic, or the crew let a fan go wild or something. See, much like a normal fanfic, Fung Wah starts to insert himself into the episode, literally and figuratively, and everybody strokes his, I guess let's say, the ego in his pants, by talking at length about how perfect and wonderful he is and how we are all but mere mortals compared to him.
Look! Now I cartoon character!
Is that really you, billionaire Fung Wah?
Yes, it's really me!
Who the hell are you? Which would be a cool way to make fun of fanfics. I mean, Adventure Time did it. Like, Ice King is the hottest hottie. See, with fanfics, the general consensus is you're the only one who is gonna read it, because you're the only one who wrote it, and you wrote it for you. So you can talk about whatever you want, and I mean, mistakes? Who cares? As a writer myself, honestly, I love fanfics. I write them all the time. I think they're a good way to help you improve your writing skills. You can see how you are as a writer what you need to work on, and you can get some really good practice. Like for me, I figured out my big problem was writing the dialogue. But yeah, usually fanfics are just there to help boost ourselves, so they tend to include plenty of Mary Sues and Gary Stews. I totally don't use it as a form of therapy. But I'll admit to it, I was a teenager once, God. American Dad previously made fun of a whole genre with independent movie, and while some people did dislike that episode, I do think they did a good job. Albeit they could have leaned more into the idea earlier in Act 1, since I feel like it takes way too much time. And the idea of Stan, Roger, and Hideki teaming up was kind of already done with the male stripper shoes, so it kind of feels like a rehash. Like, we could have done without that. I think American Fung would have worked better if at first it seems like something's off, and then really the big twist is it turns out some American Dad fan wrote this one day out of boredom and mailed it to the creators. Or it turns out like, oh yeah, you know Seth MacFarlane, he's not in the show. Just saying, like, I mean, speaking of like, why is Stan and Roger still voiced by him? Because he voices Stan and Roger, so if he sold the show to somebody else, shouldn't he not be a part of it anymore? Couldn't Fung Wah be like, oh yeah, I replaced Stan with like Channing Tatum because he sounds much better than Seth MacFarlane? But instead, the only really contribution to this episode is Fung Wah. And again, I don't know who Fung is, and I don't care who he is. It just feels like an inside joke, albeit some scenes with Fung Wah are hilarious.
Nothing in here but umbrella. Problem solved.
Can I just stop everyone for a second and point out the elegance of Fung Wah's solution?
How elegant indeed. But it doesn't make up for what happens. But back to Stan and Francine. Stan comes to the mental hospital with a bucket of chicken at the ready, and Francine, because she isn't stupid yet, realizes the obvious.
Love? 3 days in a loony bin?
And a bucket of chicken.
I hate you.
I'm with Franny, I'd rather a bucket of tenders. I hate chicken wings, although I feel like if he got her like a bottle of vodka, she'd probably be like, oh, thank you, Stan. Agreeing with me, Francine freaks the F out and gets recharged into the mental hospital. Ooh, she's gonna recharge at the mental hospital, all right, forever! Until she's well again, which is gonna be forever! As the doctors decide that Stan is her trigger, even if I don't think he is, or he's only the trigger at the moment because she's mad at him, but okay. Stan decides he needs to free Francine from the mental hospital, and with his CIA skills, he's sure to do it. By getting instituted himself, even if he was explicitly told by the doctor that they're gonna keep them separated because they think it's in Francine's best interest.
Thoughts of you, even mentions of your name, send her into a literal state of hysteria. It's in the best interest of her recovery that we keep you separated for a while.
Wait, are mental hospitals segregated by gender, like in prison? I'm legitimately curious now. I've never been to one. Stan discovers that Francine is performing in a mental hospital show about pudding and mood stabilizers and 80s hits. What? I don't know.
Who's ready for Puddin' on the Hits? Remember, if you eat your pudding, you don't have to take your mood stabilizers later, because they're in the pudding.
I'd rather eat the mood stabilizers. I'm not a pudding person. Hate to ruin that fantasy for y'all. And while Stan peruses the mental hospital, we go from just Fung Wah cameos to monologues about how amazeballs he is and how amazeballs his products and services are.
Since success by Fung Wah captures the spirit of the driven man, the scent is an inspiring blend of fresh lavender and red currant, brushed with hints of coriander.
Hey, give American Dad this. It really predicted Twitter. And Twitter is the only thing you're allowed to dead name. But I know why people hate this episode, and I've kind of realized it myself. Even if I don't think this is a bad episode, like a meh one, although I probably won't go out of my way to watch it, but if it's like on TBS one night and I don't have anything else to watch, I'll probably watch it. I don't know, but to me it has a problem similar to the episode starring The Weeknd, where it revolves around one person who isn't a character, and therefore they have to make the entire episode about that character. And when American Dad does that, they have everybody be kind of out of character themselves or obsess over them. Like, it's way too much. Especially if you don't know who the guy is, it just comes off as strange. Like, the whole Francine and Stan plot feels messy as all heck, just so they can have an excuse to shoehorn in some more Fung Wah jokes that aren't really all that clever.
In layman's terms, you seem to be Francine's trigger.
Or the Roger plotline is just kind of just so they have an excuse to shoehorn in more Fung Wah jokes, and then later Fung Wah himself, since the whole point is to basically have a self-insert for that one character.
Always remember to watch American Dad and tell all your friends. Goodbye!
Wow, seriously, great guy.
Yeah, not a big fan of the Weekend episode. Even if I do think it is cool, he was probably a fan of the show, it's just not really my cup of tea. I think they did a better balancing act when Roger was Kevin Bacon, although granted, in that instance, Kevin Bacon himself did not appear, so maybe it doesn't count. Still, I think with Fung Wah, they didn't use him enough, and at the same time, they also used him too much, because at least unlike the Weekend, we have a framing device to excuse things. But back to Stan. Stan discovers that Francine has been thoroughly medicated to the point of a stupor.
You're here?
Oh, sounds like Ringo needs some pudding.
Ugh, my dream. What? And he tries to free her, but she won't listen because she's medicated. When you start taking medications, typically your body starts to have a bunch of negative side effects since it's not used to it yet. Well, that or they overestimate how much to give her based on weight. That's like my headcanon. And he tries to get Francine out, but despite being a trained CIA agent and everything, he is easily bested by a bunch of doctors. He and Francine wake up in a medical theater, ready to be lobotomized. Jesus Christ, is Dr. Calgary running this place? You know they don't do that anymore. This isn't Sucker Punch. It was a good movie, albeit the it's all happening in her head idea wasn't all that necessary and kind of made it worse. Like, why do I care about this if she's just gonna end up lobotomized?
A better life through lobotomies.
Oh, God! Was that the lobotomy?
Nope, just a little spot of ink to show me where to stick this drill.
Me, whenever I get a piercing or a tattoo. Did you know the pen they use for tattoos is like a special kind of tattoo pen ink? I did not know that. I just thought they used like a normal pen. But who cares about a little thing like Zack Snyder or lobotomies or my lack of knowledge of tattoos because I'm a total coward? We need to focus on the most important character this whole episode, Fung Wah. Fung has come back to the Smith house to tell Steve, Haley, and Roger that he's going on an adventure in the Great White somewhere. And also he wants to try to advertise the show.
Always remember to watch American Dad and tell all your friends. Goodbye!
I mean, I do tell them, but they don't like Family Guy. Albeit, I guess Dan the Man is one of my friends, but he already watched it, so I don't really think he counts. Plus, I think Lydia watches it too, but again, she already reviews it, so I don't really think it counts. But better yet, Fung Wah isn't just using the Smith household as a place to enter, fart, and then leave. He's going to invite Steve, Haley, and Roger on his adventure, which is literally just him walking around.
We can go on your adventure. What did you have in mind?
Who know what kind of thrill and the chill? Stay tuned to find out.
Okay, that is kind of funny, I will admit. But they can come along so they can carry his baggage and to hoist him up on their shoulders, I presume. Because they'll probably be happy to do it because they'll be breathing the same air as Fung Wah. Also, is this a bad time to say I finally did some research and apparently Fung Wah is based on a Cantonese word which means magnificent wind. It was also the name of a bus company and a housing estate in Hong Kong. I don't know, I got curious. Again, that's why I'm kind of convinced Fung Wah was an inside joke. Like, he was based off of some executive the crew didn't like, or they saw his name on a billboard and made a character off of him. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to know the backstory to this episode. At least the fish stick joke from South Park was an inside joke we were all in on. And it gets funnier if you know the backstory to how Matt and Trey and Bill Hader came up with it. Whatever the reason, Fung's adventure is starting, and it's full of merriment and Fung Wah's poor voiceover compilations.
Listen, now I a dog, I think.
Mr. Fung, you have Mr. Lee online too.
No! I am very busy now! You say I call him all the time!
Fung, this is your show and I thought you loved American Dad. Shouldn't you know who Roger is? Speaking of, I'm surprised this is the extent of the changes. Like, just showing his products instead of, like, actually doing something with them. Like, Stan, we can't do this part of the episode yet. We need to advertise Fung Wah. Like, we see at the end of the episode that Fung got bored of owning American Dad and sold it to another billionaire who turned it into American Chinese Dad.
TV show now called American Chinese Dad. Program is 1000% better.
He go and improve it.
And that feels like what this episode really should have been. Like, it's more creative and it's all out there. Like, this is something they would totally do.
我被我的家庭中单压死了。
不，我们是幸福鸭。
而且不要忘记我们在一起有爱呀。
Again, like, it'd be cool if, like, he thinks that nobody knows who Wendy Schaal is, so he's gonna replace her with like, Amanda Seyfried, because Americans love her, or he thinks Roger's a dog, and so he gets replaced with a dog, or he thinks dogs do better ratings. I don't know. Again, I don't hate this episode, it's just kind of like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Like, it feels like a massive first draft. Or they massively restricted things just to have an unnecessary slow burn, which culminates into super rushed endings. Like, honestly, I would not be surprised if this was a normal episode they couldn't finish, so they added Fung Wah. Fung Wah finds his treasure, and Stan and Francine both recuperated at Fung Wah's various businesses, so who cares if they got a lobotomy?
I forgot to mention what happened to Stan and the Francine. Everything just worked out. Stan and the Francine fix all their problems at Fung Wah Resort in Bali.
And wow, I'm surprised this is actually super short. Normally when I try to do a script, I try to get at least 35 pages because 35 is usually like the cutoff for me. This was about 20, but I can appreciate the fact they tried something different even if I'm not the biggest fan. Anyhow, bye!
That's our show, American Dad. Famous cartoon. Keep watching and tell your friends. I love all my viewers. Bye!